Call to order the Middletown Police Commission. We have a full commission, including Chief Iwanchu here today. Chief?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for being flexible and changing the date of the meeting. Basically, the need was to allow us time to finish up some backgrounds for potential candidates of the upcoming police academy. I'll just go through the agenda real quick, or as quick as I can, I should say. Communication-wise, received additional correspondence from Mr. Eddie Hearns in regards to his personnel complaint and his desire to be heard by the commission. I did speak this over with Alex Smith to see what his thoughts were on it as far as the city's attorney. He had some concerns about if Mr. Hearns does come before the commission, it's almost like a hearing, he would consider it. And then he indicated that whatever was said here could potentially be used against Mr. Hearns in his criminal trial, which was still underway when I spoke with him. Since I spoke with Alex Smith, Mr. Hearns' criminal matter has been concluded and it has been dismissed due to untimely prosecution by the district attorney's office.
So he's not going to care about anything.
I don't know that. So I don't know if we'll hear back from him or not. I do believe that was one of his main things, was to have the case dismissed. Lieutenant Dolan did go and sit with Judge Brockett, who was the judge that dismissed it, and the judge told him that with the new reform laws that he had no option but to dismiss it because of the timeliness. So I don't know if the commission would like to wait to see if we hear from Mr. Hearns again and reevaluate it, or what your thoughts are.
Well, he's been contacting my office, Chief, so
Okay.
I think he's looking for some type of hearing in front of the board. Just refresher, you did an investigation, or the department did an investigation, correct?
Yeah,
And my recollection is that he did not provide the entire video, and he
Yeah.
just provided the snippet, and he said the rest of it is not available.
that is correct.
And that the video that, at least the video that I reviewed, really didn't show, didn't validate his concern, but he's asking for a hearing of some sort. What would be the procedure? It's almost like an appeal to our decision, because we voted to accept the report that was submitted to us.
That is correct. So the commission did vote to accept the report as written, and at the time, that's the information we had. We've agreed that if additional information was presented, we could examine that, but as of today, we have not received any additional information. The correspondence in regards to the video, he has since concluded that that is all he had and that his system failed him, he claims, but the video he provided starts with the officer and him engaging. We don't have anything that led up to it or anything of the first officer that entered his home moments before Officer Ryer did. So he has, for whatever reason, only selected to provide us the part that he feels is most relevant to his stance on the case.
And all of that data was in the report, if I remember.
Yes, it
right.
was.
Does anyone see a need to allow Mr. Hearns to come in for a hearing? Anyone interested in listening to an
I
appeal?
bet you now he doesn't want a hearing, right?
I don't know.
He's been calling, so, matter of fact, he's been calling so much, we told him to please have your attorney contact the city. It's not, not appropriate for me to be discussing it with you. Well, I guess we'll wait and see if he contacts us again, and we'll just send it over to legal counsel see if
For
he's
advice.
entitled to something.
So I'll make a note that if he does contact us again, we will refer to Corporation Counsel for guidance.
Good.
All in favor of that?
Fine.
Just a little bit of old business to bring the commission up to speed is a few months ago I mentioned that we had began a Too Good for Drugs program that we're going to do in the evenings because of the close down of the schools over the last year and a half, that some of the students never had the opportunity to participate. We did do our first session of that. It was a 6-week program. The graduation was on the 14th, last Wednesday. And there's 11 kids that graduated. The parents were very happy that we were doing that for the children. They seemed to be very engaged. Officer Beebe ran the program and did an amazing job. And then this past Friday, the 16th, was the graduation of the first round of the Junior Police Academy. There's 14 kids in that as well. And again, very happy, not just the kids, but the parents as well. So 2 great programs that we'd like to continue to participate in. We do have a second junior police academy scheduled for the next week, actually. It starts on Monday. That would be the next group of children. So again, Officer Beebe did both those programs, did an outstanding job. Moving into some other new business. The June Police Commission minutes, I did forward them, and if there would like to be any discussion, I believe there might be an error. No, they're never perfect. So if no one has anything to discuss, if I could have a motion to accept as written, or if there's an error, omission, or anything that needs to be. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
The April monthly statistics, or June monthly statistics, I'm sorry. We did see a slight increase, or it's actually a decrease in call volume from May to June. We had 2,880 calls in June. Part 1 crimes, or more serious crimes, we're still showing a year-to-date decrease of 35%. However, June over May, we saw a 52% increase in those Part 1 crimes. It's only a few crimes, but percentage-wise, it is an increase of 52%. Part 2 crimes, year-to-date, we're still showing a 17.5% decrease, and over the previous month, June to May, a 6% decrease. Arrests, so far year-to-date, are down 10%. For the month of June, there's 107 arrests, which was a 20% decrease from the previous month. UTTs, the traffic tickets year-to-date, are up 56%. The month of June, we saw a decrease of 32% from the previous month, and we ended up issuing 218 summons during the month. For the month of June, with the 107 arrests, out of those arrests, there's only 2 incidents that required some type of use of force, which equates to 2% of the total arrests for the month. Is there anything that anyone would like to discuss with the statistics, the monthly? Since our last meeting, we had our 4th of July weekend, which is a fairly busy weekend for us as far as call volume here in the city. This year we did some additional outreach, sent officers out to businesses, housing complexes, educated the members and staff and residents of the city's code in regards to fireworks, not able to sell, possess, or utilize. We don't get 100% compliance, so we addressed it this year with more enforcement efforts. So on July 4th this year, during that, if you want to call it the witching hour, that 9 o'clock to about 10:30, we had 65 firework calls, and we made 25 arrests during that period. The same period last year, we had 75 calls and 2 arrests. So we definitely saw a big increase this year, part of which was due to the fact that we changed the way we can enforce it by adopting a city code, which is a lot easier for the officers to enforce. So by Alex helping us create that code, gave us a better enforcement tool, which is very successful. Overall, if we go from July 1st to July 5th period, we had 121 calls, 37 total arrests. The same period of 2020, there's 122 calls and only 3 arrests. So again, overall this year, with that enforcement tool, we did a much better job, I believe. Still a lot of work to do, though, with that. Moving into staffing. Sergeant Magzamin quickly retired as of last Friday. He came in the previous week and spoke to me that his intention was to retire later on this year, but when him and his wife sat down and discussed it, he thought it was more beneficial for him to retire, enjoy the summer with his family, and do some stuff. So total altogether, he had 20 years with us, 25 years in the police system. His retirement has added to our vacancies. We currently have 8 vacancies. We're budgeted for 71. We currently have 63 sworn members. Out of those vacancies, there's two lieutenant's positions and 4 sergeant's positions that are vacant as a result. Tonight, the commission will be interviewing 2 candidates for potential employment opportunities. The last 3 candidates that were appointed by the commission graduated the police academy on July 9th. Out of the 3 candidates, 2 of them actually received awards through the academy, through the academic portions. Officer Quelez received the Defensive Tactics Award, and Officer Barnes received the First Aid Award and the Overall Achievement Award, which is a really great accomplishment on their behalf. They are all now entering into their field training program, which is about 5 months. So for the next 5 months, they'll be riding with someone in different phases. It's a four-phase process. We did conduct an additional physical agility exam. As I mentioned last meeting, we did one in May 15th or May 25th, and we ended up with really no candidates out of that. We went to the next 2 groups off of the bilingual list, the scores of 75 and 70. We started off with 12 potential candidates. 6 candidates showed up for the physical agility that day, and only 2, or actually 3 passed, but only 2 supplied us with their background. 3 passed the agility, 2 supplied us with their background. So they will be the 2 candidates that you are potentially going to interview this evening. And we are still working on one additional background of a certified police officer. He's got a few years with NYPD. Our next police academy class begins on August 2nd. So that was one of the reasons I asked to move the meeting by a week, just to give us a little more time to complete the backgrounds and give us sufficient time to get the potential candidates through the next phases of the employment process and ready for the academy if they are so chosen. I spoke with Civil Service Director, Mr. Massey, in regards to our next civil service exam for police officer. It is scheduled for September of 2022. And I've actually recently sent our current qualifications to the police reform panel participants. That was the group of participants from the community that sat in on our police reform panel last year to get some input to see what their views are on how we could better reach candidates in our community. Thus far, I've not received any feedback, but I'm hoping by the next meeting I'll have some feedback from them. Additionally, the lieutenant's exam has officially been announced for October 16th of 2021. So we will have that exam coming up here in a couple months. And since the last,
Did you replace examining sergeant?
no, I did not.
Oh, sergeant?
No, I'll explain to you what I'm doing with them. So we are down a total of 4 sergeants right now. So I can't take someone from patrol and put them in there. So we're reducing that unit for a little bit to 2 officers. It is going to be Officer Bodette and Officer Thornton. And they're going to balance some of the narcotics work with some street narcotics work, investigative work with the street. And we've tasked Sergeant Jennings to help us oversee that. And between Sergeant Jennings, Lieutenant Graziano, Lieutenant Thole, and myself, we'll be able to manage it to get us through until we do make a promotion for that. So, I mean, for last week, or this week, since Sergeant Mike Exam has been gone, the officers assigned are out there working. They're actually processing someone when I was coming through earlier. So that is a challenge for us, is, you know, just not having a supervisor. We don't feel that they should be running long-term investigations without direct supervision over them during that time frame. I did reassign Officer Ortiz from patrol to a dedicated traffic enforcement detail to help us combat some of those ongoing traffic complaints that I received through the community, and he's been pretty successful so far. He is off a few days this week, but last week and the previous week, the part of the previous week, I believe he was up to about 70, 75 summonses already, dealing with those problem areas that we have. Leads me to our next conversation, which will lead into our potential interviews tonight. In the email that I sent to the commission, there is one of the candidates that does have a tattoo on her wrist. So our current policy right now is that we would not hire anybody effective April of 2015 that has a visible tattoo. I do believe this is a good candidate. I think she meets a lot of the criteria that the police department is looking for. So it does open us up to a discussion of whether or not we're willing to interview this person, or do we stand fast with the current policy that we do not even consider her and move on. I've done some research over the last several days of other departments that have faced similar challenges when going to hire good, or what are perceived to be good candidates, and they do have tattoos. They've been overlooked or, you know, disqualified in the past. Is that something that we as a commission, the body, still would like to do? Or are we willing to look at alternatives? State police currently, which is something we've always modeled ourselves after, still does not allow candidates to have tattoos that are going to be visible in a short sleeve uniform. All of the research I've done, no department I'm finding allows tattoos on necks, backs of hands, face, anything to that effect that can't be covered. It seems like the current trend is some departments are allowing officers with tattoos, as long as they're not obviously inappropriate, gang, any type of nudity or anything like that that is really like obscene, is allowing them to cover them with either a neoprene sleeve, some type of a bandage or long sleeve uniform. So that is the opening to a discussion. I don't know if the commission's willing or ready to have.
What's the size of the tattoo, Chief, if I recall, for everyone's
With the
information?
candidate this evening?
With the candidate this
The
evening?
one that's would be visible is on the inner side of her left wrist. It is lips and the name of her mother, I believe it is. When I actually wanted to observe it myself, so I had her come in when she was being interviewed by the detectives. She had an eye watch on, and you could barely see it with the eye watch on. She had to take the eye watch off for me to see it.
Right.
However, even though that's a small one, the policy does say no visible tattoos.
Right.
So it will open us up to, I know I
Well,
have.
unless we actually change the policy to reflect
Correct.
something a little bit more
And-
reasonable, which,
Ever
I'm not,
since-
listen, I'm not a tattoo guy at all, but, and I was kind of happy when Ray put that in effect, but I also realized that, everything's not black and white either, and that if something's easily, from my perspective, if something's easily concealable in a short sleeve, and if you're going to establish a size that it's, like, if you're covering it with a watch or covering it with a, like a, what do you call those, wristband or something like
Right.
that, I personally would not have a problem with it, but I can see where it can open us up for,
We turned
other-
down. People
we turned
since
out, but people had things on their forearms.
One guy had U.S. Army, and he
Yeah.
served in the armed forces.
But that's a large thing. It's a large, I don't care what they have. To me, it's not only what they have, it's how large it is too, but,
And it says it in the application and on a test exam that they must not have any tattoo.
well, we know that she has a tattoo and that we have the policy. I guess the question is whether we want to amend the policy, not just specifically for this one person, but as
As a whole.
a whole.
So, and I agree with you, Mayor, with those comments. I think we have to watch, if we do decide to change, is the subjectivity of it, of how do we determine what is and what is acceptable going
Exactly.
forward.
I think you already have some things that are not, that describe the content of the tattoo.
We do,
But I think the
yes.
size is, to me, is going to be important. I don't care what they have. If they have something from their, from their wrist up to their, all the way up their arm. To me, that's a little bit too much. But like I said, I'm not a tattoo guy, so I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say.
Well, I agree. What size is it? You wear a wristband, cover it. I know some of the officers have a tattoo, and they always have to wear a long sleeve shirt.
Right.
Yes.
So, if we're going to amend it, we're going to have to be specific on what.
Size, yeah.
Is it a tattoo of a skull and crossbones?
Yes, yeah.
Or a parent's name or a sister's name?
And that's the content that you have the discretion in now.
Correct. We have some language about the image itself, if it's derogatory in any
Right.
manner or offensive in any manner. When I think about that, though, and the subjectivity of it is what may be offensive to me may not be offensive to the next person and vice versa. And some of these new tattoos are very intricate that the initial observation of them is, of maybe a Celtic cross, but if you really look into them, it may have some other hidden meanings to it. So they are concerns they're real concerns that we have to consider.
I don't like unicorns and rainbows either.
I remember we passed it because of the sleeve.
We passed it for the sleeve, and exactly, we didn't want anything visible.
And it was anything below the shirt sleeve.
Correct.
I was the only one that said I'm okay with the sock because the union came and said wanted to wear the sleeve
Yeah.
sock. And
You weren't the only one. I agreed with it.
I'm not okay with that, so.
Now,
So
I don't like the whole sleeve. I don't mind a band, so that's, the question is, if you're interested in amending it, is it what size
So
is the
either
question?
one or the other.
It would have
I
to be
don't
the
know.
ability to cover it up. You can't show it.
Right.
And that was what we did with our sergeant lieutenant.
No, I understand what you're
Everybody
saying,
sees,
but I'm not,
Did it
like I said, I don't
preclude-
want somebody's whole arm tattooed and then they have to cover it up in what way? With a long shirt or?
So we do have officers like that now,
Right.
that they do have sleeves. We have 2 of them that were, prior to this implementation, and that's how they have to work every day, is in a long sleeve uniform.
Right.
If we look at size, from what the research that I've read, it seems like the first step when organizations are looking to make a change from no tattoos to some form is to require that the tattoo must be covered while at work, with options, whether it's long sleeve, some type of a neoprene sleeve, bandage to whatever effect it could be. I've seen some language where if it's not more than half of the forearm, it was able to be covered. I did read something from Springfield, Connecticut, where they started that same process of going from nothing to allowing long sleeves or coverage to they're still having challenges getting candidates, so they opened it up to as long as it wasn't offensive, and their police chief had to make that decision as to whether or not it was offensive to their for their organization, what it presented. But I would say just on my input would be that if the commission agrees to or decides to change that, I don't know if we could really change it on size or on the fact that if you have it that's visible, it's got to be covered. That would just be my recommendation to avoid the subjectivity of measuring, or is this one, like right now we're talking about a young lady that has it on her wrist. If you take that same size tattoo and put it up here on
Makes
her
a different
forearm,
story.
now is that still legitimate or is that going to be another issue? So it does open us up to some discussion on it.
I feel there are so many young people in the age group that we're looking into that have tattoos, and we're really limiting ourselves. I agree that it should be covered, if not visible. I don't know the content of it, of course, is important, but where do we draw that line?
And how do you cover it? How do you cover it?
Shirts.
You won't allow the guys who have sleeves now with socks or neoprene sleeves, but now if the tattoo's here or here, how do you cover it? Just, she has to wear a long sleeve if we hire her for the rest of her 20 years?
Or do we amend, that's definitely an option, but you could also amend it that if we do make a change to the policy, that even the individuals that have the sleeves would be entitled to wear the neoprene.
I agree.
It would have to be a uniform.
Then it's fair for everybody.
Because
What's
This is
what's a neoprene?
It's a sock.
it's like a sock, and they make them in either
Everybody-
blue, black, skin colored.
But what's the difference between that and a sleeve?
It's probably a little more comfortable. It's probably, you don't have that long sleeve wool shirt on. You still wear a short sleeve, and then that's something that goes from the wrist like up the forearm, so it does cover everything.
Isn't that more like combat gear type stuff that we've seen in the past, where we've had guys
think it's
standing on the street corners with
More
those-
like sports,
Huh?
more like athletes.
See
Wear
it in sports a lot.
Tennis, it's like
Basketball
what they wear in
players wear it.
tennis. Yeah.
Football players wear it. That's where it's come from. Under Armour.
Yeah, that's,
It's not a clean decision. It's not a cut and dry clean. There's so many.
No, it's not.
You know, and also I think that if it's like a member of the family, mom, dad, brother, sister, but there are some foreign words
What
that
about,
can be very offensive.
what am I, be pet next? My pet's more important than my family.
well, it's nice to say, especially on live
Yes.
recording.
Well,
Well, I don't want to mention the words, but, you know, it could be.
yeah, I mean, it's our policy since 2015. The former chief brought it up to us because everybody was going out and getting sleeves. It didn't look right. He asked us to change it. We changed it and made it official that if you have tattoos showing, you must be covered. It's in the past 2 or 3 civil service tests, we have bumped people out of it. People who had a chance to have this career now have 5 years or more than 5 years on a job if they would have had it. We can't make an exception for one and not the
No,
other.
we're not making an
Currently
exception. We're
have
looking to
people-
change policy.
We currently have people with tattoos, and we're making them cover it. So either we say yes to tattoos or no to tattoos.
Okay.
Now, did our policy preclude us from hiring based on the
Yes.
tattoo? It did?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It required people who had them to cover
Yes.
and prohibited from new hires. But we're going point forward now, we're considering changing the policy. So I'm not sure I agree with what, I don't know what point Miguel's trying to make, but the, about someone who missed out on a career. That was the policy at the time, and we didn't consider changing it. Now we're considering changing it because of, Debbie says, the times are changing. Times are changing, so, listen, I don't like them at all, but like I said, I'm biased against it, so, I'm willing to listen. And Chief, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts when, like somebody having their fingers tattooed, stuff like that? How do you, I mean,
So I
then
think,
representing the police department when they're off duty too, because that happens, or when they're in civilian, and does it restrict you to the use of that officer when it's on an part of the body that's exposed? Like, if you have an officer that's tattooed, as Miguel said before, one guy had U.S. Army tattooed on his arm in big print. I mean, that person obviously can never go into undercover work. If people know that he had, as a rookie patrolman, they know who he is with U.S. Army, you would never put that person out in the street doing undercover, would you, or?
depends on the circumstances. If it's someone that's been out there and that's identifiable, but if it's a brand new officer that's never been in our community or on the streets, there's a potential, and that's always a potential to relate with somebody as well. But I think if the commission chooses to make a change, I think we have to keep some things very clear, that things on the hand, other than maybe a wedding, like I see people are now tattooing their wedding bands. Other than that, like anything in the outer hands, neck, face, ears, forehead, anything to that, I would say absolutely not, because there's nothing we could do with that to cover that. In doing some of the reading, like here's an article out of it's Police Executive Research Forum. It's a 2019 article, and it talks about recruiting and the changing in policing and stuff, and it says it's within the last 5 years, and they talk about the number 2 item to expand recruitment to be more in tune with your community is the revised tattoo policies. And this talks about changing it, to covering it, but it also talks about not having anything on those hands and neck, the things that we're talking of. Another one from Springfield, Connecticut, that, like I mentioned before, that they changed from going to having it covered to a few years later to making it that as long as it wasn't offensive. But again, that chief has to make that decision. So that's a very subjective process as well. That's something we can keep as part of our policy. I think there is a desire for them. I personally am not a tattoo person myself. It drives me crazy sometimes when I look at a body cam footage of a video from an incident, and when the officer's hands are out in front of him, all you see is those big tattoos. So I'm not a fan of just opening it up to say, hey, you could have them and be visible. However, if we want to expand our potential pool, do we give a little bit and say, if you have a visible tattoo from the short sleeve down, it's got to be covered in some form or fashion? Do we say always long sleeve? Do we say-
You're talking from wrist to visibility of the short sleeve.
Yeah, so like the wrist to the short sleeve would have to be covered. Hands, anything here, not even a consideration.
And you're saying you specifically cover it with sleeve, or one of these, you're going to identify what they have to cover it with, this sock or whatever you call it.
So there's options. I know like our sheriff's department, for their staff, they allow them to cover it. They give them options. Like you'll see one of the officers or deputies from the sheriff's puts a Band-Aid over it. So it's a skin-colored Band-Aid that's always on it. So, is that an option that the commission is willing to consider? Do we give options, or do we say, no, if there's a tattoo and it's visible in that area, it's long sleeve shirts?
So our current policy would not allow for a tattooed wedding band.
No, yeah, it doesn't really specify the tattoo wedding band.
It says anything visible below the
Short
shirt
sleeve,
sleeve.
yep.
And if somebody had cosmetic surgery, or the permanent makeup, so that they'd also not be allowed.
Yeah, that's not addressed either, actually, in our policy, our current policy.
So our policy is only deals with the arm now.
Well, head, face, neck, but it,
Well, the face would then be the,
yeah, and it doesn't really say
Permanent
about
makeup.
eyebrows.
yeah.
Like, that's, I guess, more of a cosmetic tattoo. It doesn't really address that. But you bring up a great point with that. A tattoo's a tattoo.
Yes, that's what I'm wondering.
So what are your thoughts? Let's go around the room. Deb? Amend, but bend, but don't, no, what's this? I'm trying to think of one of
And
those,
don't break.
one of those like slogans.
Well, I'm not against amending, but I do believe that we should have a strict policy about it, that it must be covered and what those coverings can be. Maybe, a large Band-Aid is what would cover a small tattoo on a wrist, or the sock. It kind of looks like a bandage.
Yeah.
For a sprain.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like an ace bandage sort of thing.
All right. Gene?
I'm against tattoos, and it's a long story why. But,
I don't want to hear it.
you don't want to hear it.
Yeah. But are you support amending it or not amending
Well,
it?
we have to amend it.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Because like tattoo, the eyebrows, now this is all new. People get the eyebrows tattooed on and stuff like that, so we're gonna have to amend it to specific things. A tattoo, skull and crossbones.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
And that's all addressed on the content, too. Sean, what are your thoughts?
That's the same direction I'm heading. It's, we still have to extremely
Yeah.
limit what people are allowed to broadcast, but
But,
Yeah.
Miguel?
I'm okay to amend it if it's with the length from here down, to cover up with either the bandage, whatever.
But then it does
sock.
open up to the wedding band. At what point, then what do we do with that? Do they have to wear a wedding band over the tattoo?
Do they have them now?
I know one of my officers does. In the state police policy, it specifically says that you could have a tattooed wedding band and it can't be any more than, I believe, 3/8 of an inch wide. So that's policy that we can create if that's
So the
3/8 of an inch width
Allows
on
them
one
to
finger,
tattoo a wedding band?
a wedding band. That's the only thing that's accepted on the state police. I did check New York City, NYPD. They have nothing, nothing to prohibit tattoos at this
They
point.
even have beards in New York City.
And I know they went back and forth where there was a time frame where people from whatever point of hire forward were not allowed them, but the officers previous to that were allowed, sleeves and everything, so.
I guess I'll go with the flow. So why don't you,
Not easy.
so I think it's two things. One, why don't you draft a policy for us to adopt? And two, since we all agree that the size of this tattoo is going to be covered under the policy, that we would go ahead and interview. Is that, because she's coming today, correct?
She is, but she's fully aware of
Yeah.
that her interview depended on the outcome of a
Yeah,
conversation.
well, I'm saying we're not going to be able to amend the policy today. I'd rather see it in writing.
Yes,
But I think if we could all agree, it's a small thing coverable by a watch, that would be something that's going to be covered under the, under your
Yeah.
changes.
And I'm-
I know, like, when you start talking about eyebrows and stuff like that, I have a little bit of problem with that, to be honest with you, but
It's called microbleeding.
I know what the hell it's called. But
I didn't realize how popular that was. But the,
I don't know, I don't know about
Put it
all.
on your head too, so it looks like you have more hair.
I know, I'm going to try that. You should try it, too.
if the commission's willing to, be open to a change, it doesn't have to be effective today or tomorrow. It's something that we can work on.
Yeah, that's what I'd like you to do, but in the meantime, let's interview her
Okay.
and let her know that, that we're amending the policy. We'll call it the, what's it called? What's her name?
Ray.
Jessica?
The Jessica policy?
raise
Jessica
nobody-
policy, like they do state laws,
Yeah,
Raise,
yeah, yeah.
raise nobody.
Yeah.
Policy.
But my question is, if we don't have the official amendment, I mean, we can interview her, but it stops there?
Oh, I think we have the authority to. we enforce our own rules, yeah.
We have
You know, we can waive rules, we can do whatever we want in regards to that. There's nobody being damaged, I mean,
Ray never bothered him.
yeah.
Now, do we have
He said he
any
was a good
current
guy.
employees that are speaking out that they want tattoos, they'd be upset if something like this is happening?
Well, they'll be
They're
able to
not
get
upset,
them.
they're looking at this as an opportunity as well. Yes, the union, this is the detective that did the background, obviously said something to somebody that it went around the station pretty quickly. I did speak with the union president in regards to this, and he wanted to know our stance, like what was gonna happen. And he's waiting to see if there's gonna be an opportunity for change of the policy, is what he's really looking for.
Yeah.
To open it up.
Well, he doesn't want us to be able to hire one person and without amending the policy,
Correct.
which is understandable.
So, I mean, just a suggestion, do you want to suspend that portion of that policy for now, so we're not in violation of it?
Sure.
Do you want to freeze
So we'll do
it,
two things, suspend the policy,
that portion of it, because
That
there's a lot
portion
in
of
that
it, right.
policy?
What's the portion?
Yeah.
So, the current tattoo policy is in our uniform, equipment, and appearance, which is a 21-page policy, and it's in one section, and do you want me to read it to you?
well, why don't we suspend it for new hires, and then while waiting for you to draft the whole policy?
Okay.
and
We
then-
don't want to go back to sleeves again,
What's that?
but we're not looking to go back to arguing about sleeves again, people coming in and getting full sleeves. I mean.
What do you mean?
At what point are we going to say that a small tattoo is okay?
No, I
Are
don't.
they, are we going to say that?
Anybody's gonna have, still be covered, right?
Yes.
Regardless
Yeah.
if we suspend or whatever, you still, the guys who have sleeves still have to cover.
Yes, so I think the mayor made a great point, is suspend the portion of just the hiring aspect of it, and the other portions will be negotiated going
And
forward.
taking, yeah.
And then you amend them, when we have something in writing, then we can argue about,
But you can also let them know that we all said we're all in favor of amending it.
I'm
It's
sure
up to
they're
you with the
watching.
policy.
but they can't go out and get a tattoo, though,
I
tomorrow.
agree, yes. So we will only,
Right.
so,
Because if they do that, then I'm gonna change my mind.
I understood. So, under this policy, it's uniform equipment and appearance, which is AGO 028-19, Section D, item number 7, it says effective April 24th, 2015, applicants with tattoos which are visible in the City of Middletown Police Department uniform shall not be considered for employment. So we're specifically only going to suspend item
That-
number 7.
Exactly.
Okay, and
Yes.
what does visible mean?
So when you're in a short sleeve uniform, if from where the sleeve lands on you, depends on the size of the individual. Sometimes the sleeve is here, sometimes it's up here. So anything that's visible in that uniform down would not be allowed to be hired.
But, I mean, if somebody's wearing a ring over a tattoo, we don't see it.
You wouldn't see it.
And if she's wearing a watch and we didn't know it,
So I truly, after seeing hers, if she did not identify it on her background, I don't think anybody would have ever picked up on it.
that's where I think the line is. It's that, you know, you're removing the part that says if it's visible. And
We're
hers
doing it for
isn't.
new hire.
For
Yeah,
hiring.
and hers sounds like she isn't visible.
She's visible.
She is visible.
If she takes off her watch,
Yeah.
So the rest of it says that for the existing officers, that if it is visible, they would have to wear a long sleeve shirt.
Mhm.
And we do have officers that if they stand straight, the sleeve's long enough to cover it, but as soon as they move their arm, you see a portion
Mhm.
of it.
So
Which
she
is-
would be one of the candidates that she would have to wear a sleeve then.
Well, she would have to wear a long sleeve until we make a change, or if the commission makes a change.
Right. By the time she comes on board, we'll be making the change. I mean, she's got to go through academy
She'll
and,
be in the police academy for the
Academy
next
for
5.5
months,
months. Do you want to look at the rest of the policy, just to?
Well, I understand which part that we're looking at.
So, I just printed out, it's page 18, that's the tattoo, so that's what's in effect, and it goes into the second page.
I don't want to hold up vote on me reading this, but.
so I'll make a motion, Chief, that we waive the section for new hires as stated, as you just read. And with the understanding also that, and direct you to submit to the commission a proposed amendment to allow it permanently for existing employees also.
So the mayor made a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm not pro-weed or pro-tattoo, so I had to bend on one of the two. So I guess I'm a good one to bend on. Barney?
So just for clarity, we will suspend item number 7 in the tattoo section, with the understanding that I will be proposing changes to the commission of overall tattoo policy.
Yeah.
And also for clarification, we're not going to be looking at tattoos, neck, face, head, backs of hands, anything other than possibly a wedding band. And the language in the state police contract is pretty clear that
Yeah.
it's very definitive to a wedding ring on one hand.
Right.
Is that a good start for everyone?
Yeah, that's a good
Yes.
start for me.
Okay. Okay. Well, any other discussion on the tattoo policy? Or move forward?
Oh, did we vote?
Yes, we voted
We
already.
voted? Oh.
Yes.
How'd I vote?
You
Oh, I did
made
vote
the
yes.
motion.
I made the motion.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping up here, Gene. You put me to sleep, pal.
To go through some of the training, I've been trying to just bring to light some of the training that we've been working on, because I know that was a topic in the criminal justice reform as well. So since the last time we met, I'll just quickly go through some of the training that we've had officers attend or instruct. TASER instructor at the police academy, Department of Criminal Justice Services Patrol Rifle course, New York State Physical Fitness instructor course, patrol bicycle course, flock safety training course, active shooter training at the police academy, animal cruelty investigative workshop, FBI digital photo course, post-critical incident training, and reality-based training instructor at the police academy. We are still working towards one of the new programs that I've discussed in the past, is the Q-Hit, which is a software that gives us some feedback from the community. It's a survey software, so it'll be linked to our records management system to send out a quick 2 to 3 question survey to people that we've dealt with, just to get some feedback to make sure we are still working in the right direction. We're hoping sometime in mid-August we should have the first portion of that ready to go. Since the last time we met, on the COVID grounds, I've had no employees out due to COVID, no exposures of the such. We are still operating at the state-run COVID vaccination site at the Orange County Community College. The tentative end date is July 26th, which is this coming Monday. So we haven't heard anything else about extending it. It looks like that is the end. We did request reimbursement from the State Department of Emergency Management. We're still working through some of the logistics there to get some feedback from them, but so far it's cost us a little over $200,000. Some upcoming events. This past Tuesday, we did a pop-up barbecue, which is the first one post-COVID. We do have 2 additional ones planned. This one we did at Davidge Park, which is the first time we've done that one. We had a great turnout. The school was a great partner. They provided us all of the food, which is fantastic for us. We did it around the pool area. They gave us 100 hot dogs. Within 25 minutes, I think they were gone. And then we stayed there for about 2 hours, interacted with the children. The officer did an amazing job playing different games with the kids, interacting with them. Really good. We got a lot of positive feedback, a lot of thank yous from the families and whatnot. So definitely good. Fire department was there with us too. Great partner. Parks and Rec sent someone to help as well. I'd mentioned the Youth Police Academy. The second session starts this coming Monday for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. The first session was for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Again, great feedback from the parents. I actually had some time to talk with the parents. They're looking for more activities such as that. They even mentioned about maybe some of the school holidays, if there's anything that could be done to engage the youth with the police department. So that's something on our end that we have to consider looking at. Started discussions with some of our local businesses and charity organizations about doing a community barbecue on August 21st at Davidge Park. Still in the initial stages, but it does appear to be something that may come through, which I think would be a great bonding of police department working with community organizations and just coming together and doing something for everybody. So hopefully in the coming weeks we get everything squared away with that and we have a good event. Case review. Since the last time we met, I have 5 cases that are of real importance. Not that any other ones are not of importance, but these are pretty more serious cases. So on June 26th, we had an incident on East Main Street. There's a new small deli bodega just past Prospect on East Main Street. There was a group of youths. One group was hanging out at the bodega. The other group was actually getting a tattoo. So during a break in the tattoo, the groups were outside together, exchanged some words, got into back and forth. The tattoo artist came out, separated it, brought his clients back inside, told them to park the car in the back. After they were done a couple hours later, he told the kids that were getting tattooed, go out the back, get in your car and leave. Well, as they did, the other group waited for them, smashed the window out of their car. The driver of the car threw his car in reverse, slammed it backwards, and pinned one of the other youths up against the wall of the building, severely injuring his leg. Officer Ortiz was one of the first responders, had to actually tourniquet the leg. Pretty significant compound fracture. The victim in that was 15 years old. Our suspect in that was 17 years old. So as I go through some of these other cases, you're going to see that our increase in our more violent type offenses right now are with a youth, this teenage portion of our community. So we obviously caught the suspect. He was trying to flee. He was caught on the outskirts of town. He is being held accountable. Because of the severity of it, he's considered a juvenile. However, the judge that arraigned him did actually remand him to a juvenile detention facility because it was that serious. July 13th, we investigated a shooting on Orchard Street in which a 17-year-old victim sustained a gunshot wound to his leg. It was through and through the muscle, no bone injury. He's at his parents' house. It was about 10-ish at night, if I'm not mistaken. Someone walks up. They have a couple words. He goes to run in the house. 2 shots are fired through the door of the house as he's running up the stairs. One hits him in the leg. The other hits the stairs. 17 years old, very uncooperative, will not communicate really much with us. We've gone to the parents, which are super nice and very supportive and willing to work with us. They're trying to get their son to give them some information. The only thing he'll tell them is that he has enemies. So still something work in progress. We do have video that corresponds with what the youth tells us about the suspect coming up the street, but we cannot identify him in any way. Fully covered, hooded, so on and so forth. So that is something that we'll still work on going forward. July 4th, 4th of July, that Sunday, there's a stabbing at 108 Prospect Avenue, the barbershop, right across, kind of diagonal from the little bodega that I'm speaking of. In the NBA call, one male was stabbed in the upper arm area, very uncooperative, will not tell us anything, doesn't want to really even tell us who he is. So we obviously were able to determine who he was. He ran out of there, ran across to the chicken store, and that's where the police were called. We went, did a search warrant on the building, whole crime scene, tried to follow up. So it's still an open case. However, he is not very cooperative. He is in his early 20s. We do have a very unique situation that there's a lot of holes in this case, but if it is true, it's an alarming case. But the detectives have tried to follow up with the victim on this next case several times, and he's not being very forthcoming. He's always got a reason why he can't follow up. So he originally reports it as a kidnapping, that he was kidnapped on July 13th. Claims that he was walking down Linden Avenue at 4:30 in the morning. A car pulls up, picks him up, drives him away. Beats him up a little bit, and then he ends up in a shed somewhere where he doesn't know, and he's there for 2 days. Someone opens the door of the shed. He goes running out and runs the railroad tracks all the way back till he ends up on Cottage Street. The way he explains it, we can't figure out how he could have done such, and as the officers continue to try to reach out with him, there's a lot of holes in the story that just aren't lining up. There's a very good possibility he had his cell phone during this time. He tells the officers that he got to the place on Cottage Street, asked for help. They're like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what's going on. He then realized, oh, I have my wallet and money and my credit card. Let me run across to the gas station, where he went over there and called for a taxi to take him to the hospital to be treated. He did, that part is confirmed. He did go to the hospital. He was treated. There's no serious injuries or anything. But we're still trying to piece his story together. During the course of it, he alleges that his assailants referred to him as some name that he's like, that's not me. He ends up taking his ID out, showing them that that's not his name. The assailants then were allegedly on the telephone saying to someone on the other end, hey, this isn't him, and then they left. So again, if it is real, it's a serious case, but there's still a lot of voids in this story that we're trying to run down. I spoke with Detective Artola yesterday, who was assigned to this. He's still having trouble getting in touch with him. He is a Spanish-speaking individual, so Detective Artola, being our Spanish-speaking detective, is assigned to it and is working with him. The last one that I have to advise the commission of is we had a shooting last evening. It was a dispute that started just after 10 o'clock on the edge of the skate park. The victim is an employee of a local business here in the downtown. He concluded his shift of work at 10 p.m., got on his bicycle to ride home, rode through the skate park. There's 4 individuals there, or rode by the skate park. There's 4 individuals there. They exchanged some words. They knew each other. They exchanged some words about knowing each other. They actually brought up in the conversation the young man from the Orchard Street incident. His name was brought up in the incident as well. As they're exchanging words, our victim is struck from behind with, we know it to be a gun. He believed it to be a gun because it fell to the ground after it struck him in the head. There's still exchange of words. There's some physical altercation. They actually grabbed his bike and started taking off. He ended up starting to follow them. Again, some exchange of words. And one of them said to get him. He then started running. One of the assailants chased after him as he rounded by the library, going towards the hardware store. The subject did fire 1 round towards him. It did strike the wall at the hardware store. This subject is being cooperative. He is being very cooperative. We do know who the suspects are at this point. So the detectives are working diligently to identify them. Our victim is 17 years old as well. Again, youth. Not really sure why this increase in crime with this group of youth. We're talking about high school kids just out of high school or some still in high school. We have met with the principals from the school that work with the troubled students, trying to get some insight on some of the people we're encountering. They're very familiar with them as well, so hopefully collaboratively we could come up with some type of a plan to maybe get some of this curbed or identify some more people and see what we could do on that end. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Silence?
Well, the shooter, do we know the alleged shooter, the age of that individual?
I personally don't know, but from the group that they're affiliated in, about that same age, 17, 18, 16.
So Chief, are we gonna do something, like put anybody, I mean, it's been, Orchard Street and Prospect has been like the hot areas.
Yep. So
We need to like,
starting last week when some of these things occurred, we stepped up. The neighborhood enhancement are now all work in the evenings. And that's part of the plan with the narco. That's why they've been transitioned to do more of the street ops. And I've actually put detectives out on like more of a crime suppression detail. Officer or Detective Slavic Artola worked Tuesday night. They're working again tonight, and we'll at least do 2 nights a week with them in addition to the narcotics unit and the neighborhood officers. So we do have additional presence out on the street at night now. Comments, thoughts, suggestions?
Heading in a scary direction.
What's that?
We're heading in a scary direction if they're emboldened like this.
I don't know if the commission would like to do, the internal investigations tonight, or if we want to hold them off for another meeting due to
Hold them off.
interviews.
Hold them
Okay.
off, yeah.
Same with policy review, so
yes, please.
with that being
Gentlemen,
said,
Are they here, the
yeah, I did
candidates?
see one pop in before and look.
Okay.
Unless the commission has any other questions, I don't have anything. I'll be looking for or actually, Eileen, does anyone online that would like to discuss? Or Eileen?
Not at this time.
Okay. So, being nothing further to discuss, if I could have a motion to move into executive session to discuss personnel matters and police officer candidate interviews.
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
So we will be going into executive session at 5:27 PM.
Please be advised, this ends our public portion of tonight's meeting.